Time to maybe consider raising the minimum wage. Doug Holtz Eakin is the former director of the Congressional Budget Office and president of American Action Forum, and Christian Dorsey is director of External and Government Affairs at the Economic Institute. Good to have you guys, and good to have you with us today. Christian, let me just start with you and boil this all down beyond the numbers. If we pay people more, will that be better for our economy?
Jenna, it absolutely will be. It's obviously better for those workers who will have more disposable income, be able to keep themselves out of poverty. It would certainly lift the living standards for American families to a dramatic degree. But it's also good for businesses as well. It reduces their turnover, it increases their efficiency, and it gives them a larger customer base of people who can spend money. And it's also better for us overall, Jenna, because we reduce the pressures on our social safety net.
Let me, before I get to Doug, let me just ask you, Christian, what if you could raise the minimum wage, where would you put it federally, on the federal level?
You know, I think the proposal that's floating in the Senate to raise it to $10 an hour, I think is very reasonable.
Okay.
That level over a few years would put it back to the level that it was approximately, 40 years ago, which is, I think, a good thing.
Well, and that's the fast food workers, by the way, want $15 an hour. So just want to add that as context. Doug, that is the argument, though, that if you give people a higher minimum wage, they're going to have more disposable income, they become better, more active consumers, and it's better for us all. What do you think?
Well, I think, number one, we should acknowledge there's a real problem in stagnant wage growth and a very, very bad economic recovery. And that's what people are feeling, and that's what's behind this push. But the trouble is it just doesn't solve the problem. It certainly doesn't solve the poverty problem. Only 2% of American workers are paid the minimum wage, so raising the minimum wage doesn't solve a poverty problem. We know, for example, that the difference between poverty and non-poverty is the difference between not working and working. We need to get people into work. That solves the poverty problem. And the minimum wage won't get people into work. And for that reason, we should be very skeptical. Oh, we've had tools that have been very successful. The Earned Income Tax Credit has a great track record of moving people from non-work to work. It could be reformed. Right now, it misses too many single men who don't have children. There are things we can do. This would be a bad idea. And I think Christian's point about it sounds like a good idea is worth thinking hard about, because take the fast food workers. Suppose we raise their wages to $15. That's going to show up in higher fast food prices, and by and large the consumers of those goods are lower income Americans. And it seems like a strange anti-poverty policy to take the money out of the pocket of one poor person to put it into another.
Christian,
so I admire the passion, but it doesn't add up.
Well, Christian, it's interesting. One of the arguments against raising the minimum wage is that some of these fast food joints will turn to automation, and we actually have some photos from a few decades ago from the automats. When you can just walk in and put a quarter in and get a meal. And one of the questions is would we go back in that direction? What do you think about what Doug has to say, that really we would be investing in the wrong place? It's not about necessarily the wages, but in job growth overall.
No, it's not a matter of either or. It's both and to address the automation question, obviously when it comes to increasing the minimum wage, you don't do it dramatically all at once. You do so gradually, as has been the case in cities and states and at the federal level for decades. You do it gradually so that the economy has a better chance to absorb it. And what the overwhelming amount of economic literature shows is that that does not have disemployment effects. It doesn't reduce overall employment, because when you phase it in, people have time to adjust, and it's incorporated into the economy.
Doug, real quick final thought here. I'm going to have to run.
The fact that you want to phase it in slowly and not hurt the economy tells you it's a bad idea. And the people who get those jobs are teenagers and young Americans. It's meant to be their first job. This would harm their ability to get their first job and stifle their careers, which we want to be long and productive.
We could dedicate an entire show to it. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. I have to run to the Ford CEO. He's going to be on, so maybe I'll ask him about this, see what he has to say as in charge of one of the big companies out there. Doug, Christian, great to have you. Thank you so much.